An American woman stormed the presidential council chamber demanding to marry Ibrahim Traoré, and no one had the courage to remove her. She crossed 6,000 miles, evaded the guards, ignored all protocols, and simply walked in, standing before the table where Traoré was meeting with his generals. "My name is Maya Taylor. I came from New York, and I'm not leaving until you say yes." The room fell silent. The security men froze. The tension was so thick no one dared to breathe. One of the ministers, wide-eyed, tried to intervene, but she raised her hand firmly. "I know who you are, Ibrahim, but you also need to know who I am." Traoré's face remained impassive for a few seconds, but his eyes were locked on her like blades. Maya didn't back down, she didn't blink, and she didn't tremble. In that moment, the president realized that the most unexpected day of his life had begun. Hours earlier, she had already caused a collapse in national security by appearing alone at the palace entrance, holding a small suitcase and a handwritten letter that read, "Marry me." The guards tried to stop her, but Maya spoke with such disconcerting authority that no one knew exactly what to do. They said she was ill, that she was an infiltrator, that she might be part of a foreign plot to topple the government. But when they checked her documents, they found she had no criminal record, was a university professor and the daughter of an evangelical pastor from Brooklyn. It made no sense, and yet there she was, striding through the gates with her head held high, as if that country were the most intimate place in the world. Maya Taylor wasn't asking for permission. She was answering a calling, and not even Traoré could ignore that. When the president finally met with her in private, more than 1,000 people had gathered outside the gates, some curious, others praying, others simply filming everything with their phones. The rumor that an American woman was demanding to become the president's wife had exploded like wildfire on social media. The hashtag #Maya Taylor was trending across the country, dividing opinions, igniting passions, and sparking the collective imagination with theories of romance, conspiracy, and madness. But inside the marble hall, far from the cameras and voices, Ibrahim Traoré's eyes were locked on Maya with an unsettling seriousness. "Explain why you came," he said, his voice low and firm. Maya took a deep breath, her hands clasped in her lap. "Because I saw something in you that no longer exists in the world. A man who doesn't bow, who doesn't negotiate with the corrupt, who protects the weak. I fell in love with you before I ever met you. And no, this isn't madness. Madness is knowing someone like you exists and going on with my life as if it didn't matter." Traoré remained silent. His advisors, on the other side of the door, murmured nervously. Malik, his right-hand man, was convinced it was a trap. What if she's being used? What if this is the start of something bigger, an internal attack, a plan to destroy your reputation? But nothing in Maya's demeanor suggested manipulation. On the contrary, there was a raw, almost uncomfortable sincerity in her words. "I left everything behind, Ibrahim," she continued. "I refused to marry a powerful man in New York who only wanted to display me as a trophy. I fled a life of gold because I chose to follow the truth, and my truth brought me to you." Traoré's eyes for the first time seemed to waver. He stood slowly, walked to the window and stared at the horizon with his hands behind his back. Maya remained seated, like a rock that doesn't break under the weight of waiting. It was then that Malik burst in, breathless, holding a phone. "Mr. President, we have a problem." He showed the screen. It was an international news report freshly published. Maya Taylor accused of embezzling millions from ex-fiancé Darius Monroe's company, missing and wanted by U.S. authorities. The color drained from Maya's face. "That's a lie," she said, standing abruptly. "He's trying to destroy me because I left him." Traoré's eyes narrowed. "Who is Darius Monroe?" he asked. Maya hesitated for a second. "He's the man I fled from, an influential businessman. He controls hotel chains, has connections with very powerful people, but I swear, Ibrahim, I didn't steal anything." Malik crossed his arms, suspicion exploding in his voice. "Convenient. You flee your fiancé, show up here saying you want to marry the president, and days later he accuses you of theft?" Maya shook her head in shock. "No, he's making it all up. He swore that if I left him, he'd make me pay, and now he's keeping that promise." Traoré sat back down. His face was still, but his eyes were at war. "Do you understand what's happening, Maya? If this is true, you've just put the entire government at risk. If it's a lie, you're still a threat, because now the whole world is watching us, and if I believe you, I could lose everything." Tears began to stream down her face. I have no proof, Ibrahim. All I have is the truth. I came here with my heart in my hands, and now he wants to ruin me. Another phone call came in. Malik answered. His face paled. Mr. President, Darius Monroe has arrived in Burkina Faso. He's staying at the Hotel Pearl. He just scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. Maya staggered. He came here, she whispered, her voice breaking. Traoré stood abruptly. The war has begun. The next morning, the streets near the Hotel Pearl were cordoned off. Cameras, reporters, and black cars swarmed in front of the mirrored facade. Darius Monroe's name was now spoken on every corner of Ouagadougou with a mix of fear and silent fury. He wasn't just an American businessman visiting. He was the man publicly accusing the woman who demanded to become the president's wife. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was tenser than ever. Maya remained under surveillance in one of the inner rooms, where she could hear the commotion outside and feel the weight of the world crushing her chest. The news of the alleged embezzlement of millions had already been picked up by every international outlet. Cruel comments flooded social media, calling her a scammer, an opportunist, a reputation destroyer. But she knew who she was, and that's why she refused to bow her head. Traoré watched her from a distance. His steady hands held the reports his team had managed to compile in the last 12 hours. Darius Monroe had more connections than anyone had imagined. He was involved in shady dealings with private security conglomerates, mining companies, and a suspicious network funding rebel groups in West Africa. Maya might be telling the truth, which meant she had fled a dark empire and was now a target for revenge. Or she could be part of something even bigger, a pawn placed inside the palace by invisible hands seeking Traoré's destruction. The doubt gnawed at the president from within. He wanted to believe her. But everything around him was imploding at a speed that didn't allow for trust without consequences. Darius's press conference began at noon, broadcast live to dozens of channels. With a cold, controlled posture, he appeared before the microphones with a smile that seemed like liquid poison. "I'm here to clarify the truth about my ex-fiancée, Maya Taylor," he began. "For years, I trusted her. I gave her resources, access to my companies, opened doors that many would beg to enter. And how did she repay me? By stealing, by manipulating, by fleeing to another continent to try to seduce a head of state." His words cut like blades. In his hand, Darius held up a photo. It was Maya inside the palace, seated across from Ibrahim Traoré. "She's an infiltrator, a threat disguised as romance, and I demand her immediate extradition to the United States, where she will answer for her crimes." Inside the palace, Maya watched the broadcast with eyes full of fury and despair. "He's lying," she shouted. "He set this all up. He fabricated evidence, paid people, forged documents." Malik, watching from the other side of the room, crossed his arms. "That's what everyone says when they're caught." Maya turned to him, her eyes blazing. "Do you really think I would have come all this way if I were running? Do you think I would have faced all this? I came because I loved Ibrahim, because I believed in him, and now I'm the one being hunted." Malik didn't respond. He just watched her with an expression that mixed skepticism and anguish. Meanwhile, Traoré was meeting with the justice minister and 2 legal advisors. They knew that if Darius presented official documents to international organizations, the country could be pressured to arrest or deport Maya. The problem was that parts of the local press were already buying into the narrative that she was guilty. One capital newspaper published, "President at risk over foreign passion." Another read, "Love scam. Did Maya Taylor deceive Burkina Faso?" Traoré's image was being tarnished without him having done anything. The strategy was clear. Darius didn't just want to destroy Maya. He wanted to drag Ibrahim's name down with her. That same afternoon, something even more disturbing happened. Malik entered the office with a pale face. "We have a problem." He handed the president an envelope with photos and documents. Traoré flipped through the images and felt his stomach churn. There were bank statements, receipts, and emails supposedly signed by Maya, authorizing million-dollar transfers to accounts in tax havens. "Where did this come from?" he asked in a low voice. "It was delivered anonymously to the American embassy this morning," Malik replied. "They're already preparing a formal extradition request." Traoré closed his eyes for a moment. "They won't rest until they see her out of here or dead," he murmured. Malik hesitated before speaking. "Maybe it's time to let her go, sir. Maybe she's not worth losing everything over." At that same moment, in the northern wing of the palace, Maya was seated across from an elegant woman with cold eyes, Fatima Dio, the new justice minister. Fatima seemed to weigh each word with the precision of a surgeon. "Miss Taylor," she said, "legally, your presence in national territory is fragile. The evidence against you, even if questionable, carries political weight. And we cannot ignore the international context." Maya crossed her arms. "Do you think I'm a threat?" Fatima smiled humorlessly. "I think you're inconvenient, and everything that's inconvenient needs to be controlled." With a simple gesture, she ordered Maya to be placed under house arrest until the situation was resolved. 2 guards escorted her back to her room. The door was locked, the key carefully guarded. In the darkness of her guarded room, Maya sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes fixed on the opaque wall. All her hope seemed to evaporate in silence. She didn't know if Ibrahim still believed in her. She didn't know if anyone would still fight for her voice. And she didn't know if there was time to prove the truth before it was too late. That's when she heard a knock at the door. Soft. Quick. Maya approached cautiously. "It's me," a voice said from the other side. It was Aka, the palace's communications chief. She slipped through the crack and locked the door behind her. "You need to get out of here, now." Maya looked at her, confused. "How? They're watching me all the time." Acha pulled out a bag, and from it took a cleaner's uniform, a cap and a pair of sunglasses. "You're going to leave as a nobody, and you're going to find the only person who can prove your innocence. A private detective named Louis Fail. He's at the Hotel Tamba under a false name. He's the one Darius hired to set up this whole story." Maya swallowed hard. "And you think he'll talk?" Acha replied, a glint of risk in her eyes. "Everyone has a price, but some talk out of fear, and he has reasons to be afraid." The uniform was wrinkled, the cap was old, and the sunglasses hid half her face, but Maya walked through the palace corridors as if she were part of the silent body of the cleaning staff. Beside her, Acha masked her tension, keeping her gaze fixed ahead. Every step was a risk, every door a threat, but in that moment, they knew, if Maya stayed, she would be destroyed. When they exited through the service entrance, a car was already waiting. A nondescript sedan with tinted windows and the engine running. Maya got in and could barely breathe until they left the palace perimeter. "The hotel is 20 minutes from here," Acha said, driving at a steady speed. "He's in room 403. He's alone, and he has no idea you know who he is." Maya just nodded, her eyes fixed on the road, her hands trembling in her lap. They arrived at the Hotel Tamba at dusk, as the sun sank into the desert's edges. Maya took the stairs to avoid cameras. The hallway to room 403 was empty. She took a deep breath, slipped the recorder into her uniform's inner pocket, and knocked on the door. The handle turned. A middle-aged man with thinning hair and restless eyes opened it partially, suspicious. "Yes," he said in broken French. Maya stayed calm. "Mr. Fail, I have a message from Darius Monroe." The name worked like a key. He opened the door. Maya stepped inside. The room was simple, but cluttered with folders and disorganized papers. Fail looked exhausted. "Why did he send you? I already delivered everything he asked for." Maya stepped closer, looking into his eyes. "You delivered lies, Louis, and now I need you to tell the truth." Fail hesitated. He was sweating. The silence was heavy. Then he blurted out, "I only did what I was paid to do. The bank statements were forged. The emails were created on a private server. The signatures were digitized. Nothing is real." Maya, her heart pounding, discreetly activated the recorder in her pocket. "Did he threaten you?" she asked. Fele bit his lips. "No, but he said if I refused, he'd destroy my license. Said he'd make me a diplomatic problem. And after everything was delivered, he told me to disappear." Maya took a step forward. "Are you willing to repeat this to the government of Burkina Faso?" Fele hesitated. "If you can guarantee my protection. If you promise I'll get out of here alive." Maya nodded, her eyes burning. "I promise." But before she could pull the recorder from her pocket, the door was kicked open. 2 hooded men burst in, armed, shouting in French. One grabbed Maya by the arms and threw her against the wall. The other went for Fele. "Where's the recorder?" Maya screamed, fought, tried to resist, but was brutally restrained. As the armed man raised his pistol toward Fele, a shot rang out from the hallway. The door splintered. The 2 men collapsed to the floor. Ibrahim Traoré entered, gun in hand, eyes blazing with fury. "Maya!" He ran to her, held her in his arms, checked if she was okay. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, shaken. "How did you know I was here?" Traoré didn't answer immediately. He just gripped her arm and pulled the recorder from her pocket. It was still running. "Now we have what we need." Back at the palace, Maya, Traoré, and Malik met with the ministers and justice officials. The recording was played in the main hall, in front of everyone. Louis Fail's trembling, clear voice confessed every step of the fabrication, every detail of the setup, every name involved. At the end of the audio, silence reigned for a few seconds. Then, like a contained storm, reactions erupted. Shouts, insults, accusations. In the center of the room, Traoré stood firm, his eyes locked on Fatima Dio, who said nothing. "Fatima," he said, his voice cutting, "you conspired with Darius Monroe to destroy Maya Taylor and used your position to manipulate evidence and protect an international criminal. You're under arrest." She tried to protest, but the guards were already approaching. "You'll regret this, Ibrahim." "He won't stop." But Traoré didn't respond. He just watched as she was taken away. By the end of the night, the news of the recording dominated the headlines. Maya innocent. International conspiracy unmasked. The story had turned upside down, but there was still no rest. Darius Monroe's last message was clear. "I'm not done yet. We'll meet again soon." On the balcony of his quarters, Maya looked out at the city lights, her eyes heavy, her heart still at war. Traoré approached silently, standing beside her. "So you saved me," he said, his voice low. "You believed when no one else dared." Maya turned slowly. "And you listened to me when everyone called me crazy." They looked at each other for long seconds, as if carrying in their eyes everything that couldn't be said. Then he took her hand. "Do you still want to be my wife?" Tears welled up silently. "More than ever." And when their lips met, it wasn't just a kiss. It was a pact. But outside that moment, something still stirred in the shadows. Because Darius Monroe's name had not yet been buried. Not yet.